The money and the perks will come if you do what you love and you find a way to share it with people.
We're going to meet a very interesting guy today. His name is James Galts-Goldsmith. Come with us. I have to ask about the name. Are you John Galt?
A lot of people call me John Galt. From the book, you know, Atlas Shrugged, right? I get that a lot. When we bought this building, under the residential bylaws, you're not allowed any signage. So I went down to Vital Statistics downtown and you pay $250 and a month later you're Galts-Goldsmith, which allowed me to put my name on the front of the building and never looked back since. I used to wait until the orange box was finished and then my great-grandmother would give me the box and I would bang it apart and take the nails out and I had a little saw and hammer and I would build stuff. So from that point on I was fascinated by the creative process, you know, making things. My mother and I chanced to take a trip to Banff one day and there was a little silversmithing shop in there called the Tundra. I looked over the edge of his bench and I saw those tools. I thought, oh wow, I gotta try that. That looks like fun, right? I made a lot of my own early tools and I bought American silver dollars, heated them up, cooled them down, and literally beat them with a hammer on an anvil to make sheet stock, and then I could cut the sheet stock and form them into rings and started making stuff. I didn't know what to do with these rings because I kept making it because I liked the making part, but what am I gonna do with all this stuff? You know, I had a dozen rings and a dozen pendants and I had some wood carvings. The local flea market was called Swaparama. So I got a table there and I sold $200 that first day, 1978. And it was like, wow, the light went on in my head. Have fun and make money. I never took a day off for a year and a half. I would work my oil patch job. I was selling valves for an oil company. And I would come home and make jewelry till, you know, midnight and then get up and do the same thing and then selling at the flea markets on the weekend. People would come in, well, I got this gold ring that's cracked here, can you fix it? No problem. I didn't know how to fix it, but I figured I'd learn, right? It was a steep learning curve in the early days. And one thing led to another, and eventually I quit my oil patch job and I opened up a tiny little store right across the street from the St. Louis Hotel downtown. I focus on higher carats of gold, 18 karat. White gold is very popular, but diamonds, rubies, and sapphires are the main stones I like to use because of their very hardness. Jewelry, for the most part, is not a good investment. If you're thinking of buying jewelry and selling it in 10 years to make money, it's an investment in making you feel good. This particular bench I made from solid rock maple. It weighs a ton. It took me a couple of months to build this thing. I hammered and screwed this thing together and I kind of learned as I went. This drawer here catches the filings and you know, if I drop a ring off, it's not gonna hit the floor. So
how many hours have you spent at this bench, James?
Years. Imagine sitting here for a minimum of 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for 37 years. For so many years, I was making jewelry, which involves kind of sitting like this and filing and whatnot. And it's very small, it's artistic, and it's, you know, it's sculpture in its own right. The piece of art that I did that means the most to me was the Brothers sculpture down on 5th Avenue and 3rd Street. It's about 3.5 tons, and there's 2 faces carved into it. And the story is about 2 brothers, siblings, who grow up together and, as a lot of siblings do, wind up being so different. So on one side, there's a brother who's got sort of a heavier jaw and a broken nose, a long hair. And on the other side of the sculpture is a balding guy that's maybe a little chubbier. He could be a businessman or something, you know. He's the wine and cheese, and the other brother's the beer and peanuts. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea. I find a lot of inspiration from hiking and mountain climbing. I do a lot of that. It's certainly a different mindset doing something for somebody else or doing something for creative that I want to do for the showcase. Every Friday, I call it Creative Day. So I don't do any custom orders, and it allows me to focus on doing creative work of one sort or another. You know, maybe exploring a new technique or creating a nice piece for the showcase like some of the pendants. Goldsmithing, as I do it, is not particularly lucrative, but it's a fantastic way to make a living. It's about problem solving for the most part. Somebody comes in with an idea or a shape and you have to solve the problem, how to create this piece, or take two different colored golds and join them together and set a gem in the middle of it or something. You know? You're always challenging your brain to solve the problem and come up with ideas that work for the client. I've trained maybe 100 people initially in silversmithing. When I started teaching myself hand engraving, there was a lot of requests from gun makers, knife makers, clock makers. So I started engraving courses, and I did that for years. I taught a lot of people. I've had Jackie Chan here when he filmed Shanghai Noon. I did 5 guns, set of brass knuckles, custom-made knife. And I've done work for Bill Murray, the movies Legends of the Fall, Lonesome Dove. I did a really nice Henry's brass block rifle. I'd always been using reference material. So I painted out of my head completely. It sold right away. This style of painting just kind of works well for building. I like to keep them light. Well, I call them whimsical. You know, my saying at the time was, whimsical paintings for a not so whimsical world. I start with a pencil sketch. I felt marker the whole thing. I'm going to go in there and start putting the color in. I usually start with the sky. I work from the back towards the front with oil paints. The nice thing about a whimsical paintings is, like, sky doesn't have to be blue. You know, it could be green. You know, there's enough art out there that's heavy and, you know, can be depressing or has political statements and whatnot. And I don't want to be part of that. I like people to look and smile when they see something or make them laugh, you know.
Do you do it for the money?
I don't know any artists that are rich. Yes, I am rich, in a sense. I'm rich in that I love what I do. The house is paid for, all my tools and equipment is paid for, and I can kind of pick and choose the jobs I want to do now. The money and the perks will come if you do what you love and you find a way to share it with people. There's something really rewarding about working with your hands, something that you physically make, and at the end of the day or at the end of a couple of days, you've got something that you can be proud of, whether it's rough or not. You made it with your own hands. That means a lot to people.
You too can become part of this journey. Come help us. Let's celebrate these businesses together. Donate to our site, www.forwardthefavor.com, and we will bring you more of these exciting programs.